everyone, welcome back to my channel. Now, you might recognize that we are in a different location, and that is because, drum roll please, I bought a house, I bought a house, I bought a house, I bought a house. Now, I don't want to go any further in this video without saying that we are very close, just a few days away from the 20th anniversary of September 11th. A huge shout out and thank you to all of the first responders, the firefighters, EMTs, paramedics, police officers, nurses, and physicians, anybody who takes care of others in New York City. Huge shout out to you, a huge thank you to you. I'm also going to provide some links down below if you're interested in donating to the 9/11 memorial, or if you would like to seek out some assistance, guidance, help, therapy. You may be reliving some horrible memories of that tragic day, and I just want to provide some resources to you, so those will be linked down below. Now, without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into today's case. Today we are going to be talking about William Hurley. Will was 24 years old when he went missing on Thursday, October 8th, 2009 in Boston, Massachusetts. Will is described as loving and funny and genuine and somebody who just really loved life. His family describes him as spontaneous and happy and easygoing, and Claire, his fiance at the time, says that he made her a better person just by being him. Will was from North Carolina, and while serving in the Navy, he met his then girlfriend Claire in Boston while she was studying for her master's degree in teaching at Massachusetts University in Boston. The night of his disappearance, he had actually attended a Bruins hockey game. Now, Will was not a huge hockey fan. In fact, this wasn't even a planned event. A friend, Brendan, at work that day had asked Will, "Hey, I have this extra ticket. Are you interested in going?" And Will called up Claire and was like, "What do you think I should do?" And she said, "Will, go have a good time. You've never been to a hockey game. Go have fun, spend some time with your friends, and I'll see you after the game." So Will did just that. He went to the Boston Bruins game. Now, while Will was at the game, he had actually texted Claire numerous times complaining about somebody who was sitting near them. Now, to be clear, this was not somebody who was part of their nuclear friend group who had gone to the game with them. This was somebody who was just sitting near them in the stadium. And while we don't know exactly what he was complaining about, we do know that it was enough to make him text Claire and complain about this person. So my assumption was always that, well, this person was just loud, noisy, obnoxious, was making rude comments, any of those things. But basically we know that it was irritating enough to Will that he felt the need to complain about this person to Claire. Now, just prior to midway through the game, Will unexpectedly says to his friends, "I need to go home. I'm tired. I don't feel well. Something's wrong. I just need to get out of here." So his friends say that Will claimed to them he was going to text Claire and get her to pick him up. Will ends up calling Claire and says, "Please come get me. I don't feel good. I just want to come home. I'm tired." Initially, Claire says, "Okay, well, that's not entirely weird because after all, Will did get up at 4:30 in the morning for work that day." So we're talking about 7:30, 8 o'clock, somewhere in there between 7 and 8 at night. So he's had ultimately like a 13, 14, 15-hour day. That's pretty long. So she basically was like, "Okay, I'll come and get you. I'm leaving class. Where are you?" He says, "I'm walking out of the stadium." She's like, "Okay, I'll be there in 2 seconds. She gets right outside the front of the stadium. So we're talking about TD Garden in Boston. She says, "I'm out front of the stadium. Where are you?" They're on the phone, and he says, "I think I got turned around. Maybe I'm on the other side of the stadium. Can you come get me?" So she says, "Yes, I'll be right there." She gets to the other side of the stadium and he's nowhere to be found. So she says, "Will, ask somebody where you are so I can come get you." Now she hears in the background somebody say, "All right, bud, like you're at 99 Nashua Street." She says, "Perfect." Now, Will was not from this area. Again, he's from North Carolina, so he has no clue where he is. This stranger in the background is who said, "You're at 99 Nashua Street." She says, "Perfect. I'm going to put it in my GPS. I will be right there." And he says, "Claire, my phone's going to die. I'm at 1%. I'm going to hang up. I'll see you in a minute." She's, "Perfect. Okay, love you. Bye." They hang up. She puts 99 Nashua Street into her GPS. It's less than 1 mile away, less than a minute away. It's like something like 150 yards. It's really close. So she makes a couple turns, gets herself to 99 Nashua Street. Will is nowhere to be found. She drives around, she gets out of the car, she's yelling for him, beeping the horn, cannot find him anywhere. Says to herself, like any of us would, all right, he got lost, like idiot. He got lost, he walked in the wrong direction, no big deal. He's gonna find somebody. He's going to get himself a ride home. She gets home, waits around, next morning, Will never shows up. So she goes to the police department, attempts to file a missing persons report. They, as per usual, say you need to wait 24 hours, insert eye roll. And so she takes matters into her own hands. She calls his family. They immediately get in a car. They're on their way to Boston. They end up putting up missing persons flyers everywhere where they believe he could have been. So outside of the stadium, anywhere that they think he could have walked. They really don't get any leads, which is very bizarre. So when she's able to, she files that missing persons report. I believe it was October 10th or 9th that she files that missing persons report. Don't quote me on that. The dates are kind of mixed up in this case, and I've seen them reported in various spots. So follow me on this journey. She files the missing persons report, and on October 11th, they find Will's cell phone on Nashua Street broken. Now, the police report states that they believe it was run over by a vehicle, but very recently, an independent investigation revealed that it looked more like his phone had been twisted apart. So Will had a flip phone, and it basically looked like somebody took the phone and broke it in half, like twisted it to break it in half, though the police still maintain that it was just run over by a vehicle. 6 days after Will went missing, on October 14th at 2:30 a.m., a police officer on a routine walk finds Will's body floating in the Charles River. The autopsy report revealed blunt impact injuries to his face and lower extremities. He had a cut, contusion, and bruise on his nose, and he had such a bad bruise on his right eye that it was swollen shut. A toxicology report also revealed GHB in Will's bloodstream. Now, everybody has GHB in their system. It's just not to the extent that Will's was found. The level of GHB in Will's system was determined to be at a level where he would have had to have been drugged. Now, I want to say two things about this. Number one, foul play had to have been in some respect suspected, because why would you test him for GHB? If you really think that he accidentally fell into the river or something accidentally happened to him, you wouldn't test for GHB. So number one, I believe that foul play was initially suspected. Number two, this obviously reveals that foul play was in some way responsible for Will's death. He was never known to partake in recreational drug use. And GHB generally isn't something that people are taking just for fun. I did a little research. It does produce a euphoric state. However, it's mainly used in crimes where people are trying to sedate somebody else. It's often called the date rape drug. So I think this indicates very clearly that foul play is not necessarily 100% responsible for Will's death, but it is absolutely something that should be investigated. As I said before, Will's body was found in the Charles River. Very recently, independent investigations took place for a docuseries on the Oxygen Network. Oddly, the night prior to Will's body being discovered, the police department did an entire search of the Charles River in the area where his body was found, and they found nothing. In fact, they went as far as to say to Claire and Will's family, listen, I know you're stressed out right now, but his body's not in the river. You can put that theory to rest. His body is not there. We will continue to look for him elsewhere. And then the following day, his body was found. That's suspicious. Now, the dive team that recovered Will's body indicated that they thought his body hadn't been in the river longer than 2 to 3 days. During the independent investigation that took place very recently, a forensic pathologist agreed that his body could not have been in the river longer than 2 to 3 days based on the images that she was looking at from the crime scene and from the recovery. The forensic pathologist also posited that the injuries that Will sustained could not have been from falling into the river. So basically, This person indicated that when you fall, you hurt the bony prominences of your body. So for instance, your nose, your chin, your forehead. And those areas, though he did have a cut and a bruise on his nose, were not the main areas of damage on his body. The forensic pathologist also concurred that the bruise on his right eye would have had to have occurred while his heart was still pumping, so while he was alive, because the bruise was so well developed. It means that blood had been pumped or rushed to that area after the injury had occurred. During this independent investigation, I think it's really important to say that the investigators said to the family, even if Will had just gotten into an altercation with somebody along the side of the river, that person punched them in the face and he fell into the river and he died subsequently, that is murder. If death occurred because of something that somebody else did, he was murdered. Additionally, during this independent investigation, an underwater forensic investigator determined that Will's body could not have entered the water where the police originally posited. So the police argue that Will was drunk from the hockey game. He was just another young kid, got drunk at a hockey game, stumbled his way down Nashua Street to the water, was trying to use the bathroom, relieve himself, and fell into the water, and this was an accidental drowning. In fact, his death was ruled an accidental, undetermined drowning. Doesn't make any sense. Anyways, the police posit that he fell into the water at a very specific location. Now, this underwater forensic investigator has determined that that is impossible given where his body was found. So, where his body was found, they have determined that either his body had to enter the water much farther upstream than the police argue, or his body would have had to have been placed into the water just 10 to 15 minutes prior to the police finding his body. That does not match up with what the police are indicating happened to Will Hurley. As I said, his death was determined an accidental drowning. I don't believe any of the physical evidence nor the circumstantial evidence would indicate that Will accidentally drowned in the river. His body showed evidence of physical assault, and further independent investigations have deemed that the facts of this case are just not true. Some have theorized that Will's death is part of the smiley face killer spree, and I can do a video on the smiley face killer theory. I'm not all that incredibly familiar with it. I know the basics. However, from what I've read and researched, I really don't think that this falls in line with that theory, but I really can't tell you any other theories because there's just not any more evidence. There were no eyewitness accounts. There was really nothing to indicate who Will came in contact with and how he ended up in the river. He was on the phone with Claire just minutes prior to his disappearance. I feel so terrible for this family, and I feel terrible for Claire because can you imagine being on the phone with somebody that close to picking somebody up, somebody you care about, somebody you're engaged to, somebody that you love, and they just slip through your fingers in just a moment's time? I really would love to know your theories of this case. I'd love to know, do you agree with the police? Do you believe that this is an accidental drowning? Or do you believe that Will met foul play? With all that being said, I will see you in the next video. Drop your theories down below. Please be respectful. Many times families actually watch these videos, and I just want to remind you that these are actual people. So please, please be respectful, be kind to one another, and I will see you in next week's video. Bye!